guys, welcome to Field Sketch. Today I want to talk to you about discharging your LiPo batteries. The most fun way to discharge them is to put them in the helicopter or the airplane and fly them. Let's say you charge a bunch of batteries and you go to the field and fly, and there's a lot of people there, you don't get to fly at all, or the rain comes and you just have to load everything back up and pack it back to the house. In our best practices video, we talked about not leaving these LiPos fully charged. You need to store them at a balanced charge. But with 3-cell batteries, and this is not a technical video. This is how to show you that for about $40 you can buy the stuff at your local hardware store to build a discharger that will charge 2-cell, 3-cell, 4-cell, 5-cell, up to 6-cell, and actually more than that, but you just have to be careful. But I want to show you how to do that. Some of the things that I went through, I thought, there's got to be a better way. I know this is not technically perfectly correct, but I'm going to call 3-cell LiPos 12-volt batteries and 6-cell LiPo batteries 24-volt. Okay, I know it's 22.2 standing voltage and then 25.5 or somewhere around there when it's fully charged. Excuse me, the 3-cell is 11.1 volts, about 12.5 volts when it's fully charged. But for the ease of math and so it helps stick in your mind, I'm going to call it 12 volt and 24 volt. Okay, so with the 12 volt batteries, I know you've seen a lot of guys out there, with a 12 volt battery you can go to your hardware store, your automotive store, and buy the old light bulbs. These things have been around since the 50s, I guess. The 1157 is the part number for a double filament tail light bulb. These happen to be 1156s. It's the ones when you put your car in reverse, or the older style cars and trucks, you put it in reverse. It had 2 of these bulbs and they're called backup lamps. So I bought 2 of the lamps and 2 of the holders, and I soldered some wire on the outside so that I could run the ground through a conductor instead of having to be grounded through the body. And I wanted to do some testing to see, okay, how long does it take to charge or to discharge these batteries? This bulb it'll take about 2 amps discharge, maybe 1.5 amps. And so when you look at these batteries, these are 1300 milliamps or 1.3 amps. All right, so if this takes 1.3 amps, if you notice there's mAh for milliamps per hour. This thing technically will provide 1300 milliamps for an hour or over an hour time. All right, so when you divide that down, it's 1.3 amps per hour. Okay, so if you put a 1.3 amp discharge on it, then it's going to take between 45 minutes and an hour to discharge it down to the 80%, 30 minutes to an hour anyway. Okay, so it doesn't take long to do the math. If you've got 10 of these batteries, it's going to take you a while to discharge them with a single bulb. So a couple things I want to talk about first is series and parallel. Let's say you have a single 3-cell battery, 12 volts is what we're going to call it, and you got positive and negative. All right, and that's in your connector. You got positive and negative. You hook the bulb you hook a wire to the negative and you hook a wire to the positive, and that's your 12 volt battery with a 12 volt load, and it's going to discharge in a long time. Okay, so let's say you want to discharge faster. All right, so you take that same 12 volt battery, 3-cell, you got your positive and your negative, and you come in here and you want to put a bulb here. All right, and we're just going to do a symbol like this for the bulb. So that's one bulb across. Let's do that a little better. So we'll put the wires running out this way, and you hook one bulb across here just like this. All right, so that's your 12 volt there. That's a 1.5 amp if that's what the draw is on that. Let's say that you want to hook another bulb in there, then you come in here and you put the second bulb just the same way. You hook it up with that. Okay, now it's going to pull twice the amperage and discharge twice as fast. It'll have 2 bulbs. So in real life, what that would look like is This bulb connected same to here, so you'd have two bulbs parallel, and you would connect these to the battery. All right, I'm going to show you some of this in just a minute, but if you need it to discharge faster, then you can obviously put more bulbs in here, you know, depending on how fast you want to charge it or actually discharge it. And then it's going to discharge the 12-volt battery. All right, and that's fine for 12-volt batteries. All right, but when you go to a 24-volt battery, you can't just hook a 24-volt battery up to a 12-volt light bulb. It'll become like a flash bulb. If it does burn it, it won't last long at all. All right, so one thing that you can do instead of wiring these bulbs in parallel is wire them in series. And so what I mean by that, let's say the bulb is like this. All right, here's your filament. All right, you're going to have a positive on this side and a negative on this side. All right, you would connect that straight to the battery. All right, but if you pass 12 volts through it, you're going to get a 12-volt load and a 12-volt light. All right, but to wire it in series, what you want to do is you take the positive from here and the negative from this one, and you come over here to this bulb. Don't laugh at my artwork. And then you take the negative from this one and you hook it to the positive from this bulb, and then you take the wire from here and you hook the negative. All right, then you take your battery. Now this would be your 6S 24-volt. And then you run the negative to the negative and the positive to the positive. And now what it's going to do is it's going to burn both of these bulbs at the 12-volt brightness, because you're passing 24 volts through them, but because you've wired them in series, you're doubling that load. Okay, and I'll show you how that works. All right, now if you're doing this at home, you want to make sure that you've got if you don't understand electricity or you don't know anything about it at all, then get with an electrician or an automotive mechanic or someone that can help you to be safe. But what I'm going to show you is, and I don't know how this is going to show up on the camera, but what I'm going to do is hook this 12-volt bulb to this 12-volt battery, and you'll see that it lights up at this particular brightness. Now I don't know how that's going to look to the camera, but we'll give it a shot. All right. Now what you want to do when you wire it in series, you see here I've got the 4 wires. I'm going to take one wire, the positive from one and the negative from the other, and I'm going to twist those together. All right, and then I'm going to take the negative and plug it into the negative, and the positive from the other one. You see the positives to the negatives in the middle, and you connect that. Now if you notice, these 2 bulbs are on, and hopefully you can see the difference, that these bulbs are half the brightness that they were when they were running one bulb on 12 volts. All right, so what we're going to do now is double the voltage. Since we've doubled the load, this battery only has, and for layman's terms I'm just going to call it pressure, it only has 12 volts of pressure or power to push through, and so the double resistance slows the current down to where you're only pushing a lot less current through, probably about half the current. But when you double the pressure and you go up to a 24-volt battery, and again you hook the positive to the positive and the negative to the negative, well, if these wires stay connected. Alright, so I'm going to hook the positive here and then hook the negative here, and you see here that now we have both bulbs wired in series, double the load, but because we have 24 volts or double the pressure, it's pushing the same power through it and giving you the same drain or the same output as it was on the 12-volt system for a single bulb. All right, so that's the difference between parallel. Parallel, you could run multiple bulbs and drain a 12-volt bulb faster because you just keep stacking up the 12-volt load on the 12-volt source until you get the amperage flow that you want to discharge it. But in order to do the 24-volt, you have to have a 24-volt load. Okay. Now, one of the first things that I did in doing a battery drainer was I looked for sources of 24 volts DC, and I couldn't find. There's several things, but I didn't have anything readily available. But any 12-volt load that's DC can be wired in series, 2 of those loads to run off of a 24 volt source. So I had this Ryobi drill, it's 18 volt, and anything, 18 to 22, 24 volts, any of that will run on the source. It's just an 18 volt drill is going to run a little faster on 24 volts. This 24 volt battery has an EC5 connector, and I went inside this battery pack here, it's an empty case, and I took all the nickel metal or whatever the batteries were that were in here, and I took these wires, went in and soldered them to the contacts up here so that the positive connected to positive in the drill, the negative connected to negative, and then I filled it with silicone on the inside and the outside to provide protection so the wires doesn't get cut, because I just wanted to do some testing and see how it would discharge a battery. Alright, and so if you hook this 24 volt battery up to this 18 volt drill, you can vary the load by putting it slow or running it fast. You could squeeze the trigger and either wrap tape around it or take some of the clamp. Alright, and that would discharge your battery. Alright, the problem with the lipos is you don't want to discharge them past a certain point. Alright, so I'll show you a way that you can tell how much you're discharging and monitor it with an alarm. You need to know, first of all, how much load that you're putting on it. So I have this E-Flight meter. It's used to test power flight systems for electric airplanes, helicopters, and that kind of stuff. So you would hook this into the battery, and immediately you'll see here that it's showing 22.7 volts. If you scroll down, then it shows amps, and right now there's no amps flowing because amperage, the current that is flowing is measured in amps, and there's nothing flowing because there's no load, so it doesn't measure amps. And then it keeps up with how many watts that it's pulling of power, and then if you scroll again, it keeps up with the total amount of milliwatts that have been withdrawn from the battery. Alright, so using the drill, I'll show you how that works. Alright, so we'll connect it up, and then if you look there, then it's showing 22.7 volts. When you squeeze the trigger, you see it drops down to 22 volts, and you can watch it, it'll start to drop. But then what I really wanted to see is how much it's actually draining down. So while it's running, push the button. Now it's 2.5 amps. Alright. So this battery with this drill is 2.5 amps. Alright. Alright, remember what I said about amp hours? At a 2.5 amp draw, this battery will provide 5 amps for roughly an hour. Okay, so if it's at a 2.5 amp draw, if I hook this battery to that drill and turn that on, you can do the math. 5 amps is going to take an hour, so 2.5 amps is going to take about 2 hours to discharge this battery. Alright, so let's say you go to the field and you have 5 of these batteries, and it takes you 2 hours to discharge each battery, and it's going to take you 10 hours to discharge this battery. Alright, so how can we add to this or add to the load? We could wire more of these loads. You could get 5 or 6 drills, put you some wire harnesses in there, and actually just double the load, but wire it in parallel, and then hold the triggers. But I found a way to go. You can go to the hardware store and pick up this stuff and build a discharger that you can vary the load on there. So it's not very efficient when you talk about draining multiple batteries, and it's not going to be very fun to sit here and watch it. Okay, so we've got the voltage meter here that measures the voltage, the watts, the amps, and then the milliamps that you've actually taken out. It keeps account of, let's say, however many it's taken out of 125 milliamps. Alright, so how do we know when we get down to the point that we need to stop? Alright, this is a small battery or LiPo checker, and it's designed to plug into the balance port on the batteries, and it's also got an audible alarm in here. If you read the back of it, once you plug it in, you can push the little button here in the end of it and set the voltage that you want the alarm to go off. So you could plug this into this thing and Velcro it to your battery, and while you're flying your model, if it gets down to 3.8 volts, this thing is going to sound an alarm. So what I do is I put it on the discharger and I plug in my voltage alarm, the balance port, and that's the sound that you'll get. And if you notice this, what it'll do is it'll say all is 22.7 volts, 3.78, 3.79, 3.76, 3.81, and number 6 is 3.80. Okay, but all of them is 22.7. Okay, so this battery wasn't charged, and it's right now it's down to where it needs to be to discharge. But if it's a full battery, what it would do is give you the alarm only when that lowest cell gets down to where it is. Now it's going to spring back a little bit, but see, it says all of them are 23 volts. All right, so what you would do is you would actually put this in there and then plug the battery into here, turn the load on, and you want to stay in the room where it's at. You don't ever want to walk away from these things charging or discharging. But then when the lowest cell gets down to the 3.8 volts, then it will set that alarm off. Then you come over here, you unplug it, unplug it from that, and let it sit there for just a couple minutes, and then double check it, because usually if you draw it down to 3.7, it'll spring back to about 3.8. I have mine set to cut off at 3.8 volts per cell, and it'll spring back to about 3.85, 3.88, depending on the health of the battery. All right, so you could get multiple drills, you could get all this stuff. Anything that's going to be a 24 volt load, it's going to take a long time. All right, so what I did is I went to the hardware store, and let's just leave this up here, and I'll just go back over here. And if I wanted to discharge this battery faster, then what I would do is put, if I did one drill, if I have the battery here and I hooked one load up at 3.5 amps, then it's going to take a long time. All right, whatever this load is, it's a light bulb or whatever it is. If you hook up one 3.0 amp load, then it's going to take that long. But if you come over here and you run parallel and you hook up multiple loads parallel, then you've got 3 times. Let's say each one of these loads is 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, then it's going to be 3, 6, 9, 10 and a half amp load. All right, so if you hook up a 10 and a half amp load to this battery and it supplies 5 amps for an hour, and you hook up 10 amps to it, then it should take about a half hour to totally discharge it. Okay, so you don't want to discharge it all the way down. So now we're getting closer to a workable time. All right, and so what I've done is gone to the hardware store and found bulbs that actually are they're automotive bulbs, but they look like regular incandescent light bulbs that you use at your house, and they screw into the same socket as your house. All right, and so you can find these little base plates like this, and you screw this light bulb in here. All right, and remember we had so many watts that we were dealing with, however many watts it was pulling. This bulb is a 50 watt bulb. Okay, so then what I did is I got 6 of these bulbs, and I wired pairs of these bulbs in series. Okay. All right, so if I took this bulb and put a wire on the positive and a wire on the negative, it's got a flat block there. You could put it right down on a piece of wood, run a sheetrock screw in it, and attach it to a board. Then you could do another one like this, and another one, and another one, and another one, and you could use 12 volts to discharge a 12 volt battery because you're running them parallel. But remember, to get them to run 24 volts, you have to double the load by running them in series. So what you want to do is you want to turn them this way and run a wire from this one to this one, and then hook your positive and negative from your 24 volt source across both of them wired in series. All right, so what that would do is give you this load here. So what you want to do is come in here and you put a switch, so that when you flip the switch, then it makes this connection and makes it burn. But anything happens, you want to turn it off, you just flip the switch. You would have a switch here. All right, and you would run this to one side of the switch, and then you would run this to the other side of the switch. And then so as long as this switch is open, no current would flow. But the minute that you close this switch or turn the switch on, it connects these wires, runs the power through there and back to here. All right. If you want to do it faster, then you would do 2 of these and plug it into the same plug. You could run Y harnesses, but what I did is I took a 3-way switch, and this is what it looks like. it's not a three-way switch, it's just three switches that share a common ground and hot wire, okay? And then it has three outputs, one for each switch. Okay, so the way this is going to work is you've got your battery here, all right, and you run your power up here, and this switch is right here, all right. So you're going to run the power to this side of this switch, and then you have a switch here, you have a switch here, and you have a switch here, and then on the other side of this, I'm going to break it out flat so you can see it. You're going to have three terminals here, all right. So your power is going to come in here to this switch. If you push this switch, what it's going to do is connect to this terminal here, and whatever wire, let's say this wire is hooked to here, and it's got a bulb here, and you've got this one hooked straight across here. Remember your jumper wire in between here. You've got the other bulb here, like this. Then you're going to come back, and then let's just put a terminal over here, okay? Now, because this is actually, and you've got your negative connected to here, all right? This wire is going to come down here and connect to this, whether this is a solder joint or a crimped butt connector. To build what we're going to build, you don't have to be able to solder. If you can run a screw gun and run a crimper and a wire cutter, then you can build this discharger. All right. So what we're going to do is this first switch is going to power these two bulbs and come back to here, and then this, obviously there'll be plugs in here where you plug this thing in. Then the same power leg here. Now you want to make sure that your wire here, I'd use 10 gauge or 12 gauge wire, and that should cover what we're doing here. But then when you push this second switch, there's another wire that runs here that's going to have another bulb here, wired in series to another bulb here. All right, and then this wire is going to come down here and it's going to tie into here. So all this is your ground, or the negative side, and this is your positive side. All right, so we're going to duplicate that again. All right, push this switch, it's going to make this connection here. This wire here is going to come over here, be connected to another bulb, which is wired in series to this bulb here. And then that wire, the ground wire, is going to come there. So it's kind of sloppy on the board, but what you have is a series of light bulbs, two 12-volt light bulbs, 50 watts each, wired in series with a switch in each circuit. But we're using the same switch, three different poles on that switch to power three pairs of these. All right, so what you're going to get is you're going to get roughly a 4 amp draw on the first set, 4 amps on the second set, and 4 amps on the third set, for a total of a 12 amp draw. All right. Now, if you're breaking your batteries in, you can do it at a 4 amp, you can do it at an 8 amp. If you hit one switch, it's going to give you 4. It doesn't matter if this one, or this one. 2 switches will give you 8, and 3 switches will give you the 12 amps. Okay? And you can use that to discharge your batteries. Now, if you can use a combination of all this, and we'll get to that later. I want to show you the prototype that it's rough, it's funny looking, but it works, and anybody can build it by going to the hardware store, and it's roughly about $40. And I'll put up a link, or maybe show a picture on this so you can pause the video and look at it to get the part numbers. But what we have is, and actually this has got something, I put a junction block here on one of the circuits so that I could actually tie this into another set so I could double this load and then hook it to a parallel board to discharge multiple sets, because I have 2 stick packs that go in my 700, and I've got several 6S cells, so I can plug them all into a parallel board and then plug this into another load and double the load to discharge them all at the same time. Now obviously, let's go back a little bit. If you plug one 6S in, or if you plug one 6S into a 12 amp load, it's going to discharge at 12 amps. If this is 5 amp and you put 12 in there, then you're discharging it a little more than twice the amperage or twice the C rating. You're discharging it at just above 2C. Okay, so it's going to speed up how quick that it discharges. You're talking about 10 to 12 minutes roughly, depending on the pack. A couple variables, the size of wire that you run, how long the wire is that you run, could affect exactly the amp draw. That they may vary. The heavier wire that you get, the more amperage you're going to get to draw, but it depends on the load of the bulbs. You're not ever going to exceed the amperage that the bulbs will pull, but you can hinder how much is pulled by using the small wire. And then you run into situations where you're trying to pull too much and the wire starts getting hot. So use good wire, probably 12 gauge wire, 10 to 12 gauge wire, and you should be fine. You can probably get by with 14. I've actually used just some junk from old garage door operators, stuff that I scavenged off a boneyard, and put this one together. I did buy the switch and the box and the bulbs and stuff from the store, but the wires and connectors I just scavenged from old garage door openers. Alright, so what we're going to do with this is we'll actually plug this one in and let you see a little bit how that works. So you plug it in and there's nothing going on, there's no arc, there's no spark, because there's nothing connected. Alright, and so what we're going to do is this switch up here, we'll connect that, and you see that it operates these two bulbs, which would be the top two. The middle switch operates the second two. The third one will operate the last set here. And so a total, and you could put on your sunshades too, but the total would be about a 12 amp draw. And I'll show you that. Okay, so we're going to take this battery here, we'll plug it into the meter here. We'll plug this in to our balance port. Alright, so the battery is showing 22.9 volts. Number one is at 3.82. Alright, and so what I want to do is show you this battery doesn't have much of a charge, it's almost drained, but then we plug it into here and you see that we have the voltage here, and our monitor here is showing us each cell. Alright, hopefully you can see this, but as we increase the load, we'll put a 4 amp load on it. Alright, and we'll switch this over to amps. That's 4 amps there. Hopefully that's not blinding you so you can't see it. We'll hit another switch, there's 8, and there's 12, and you see the alarm went off because number 2 has dropped down. Alright, so when that goes off, you stop your discharger. It's hard to miss that alarm. Alright, so it doesn't take, it'll take, dependent, like this is a 2650 milliamp, and you know, it doesn't take long to drain it down. Get a battery that's got a little more charge in there, and then we will put it on there so we can see how many milliamps that it's drawn out. All these batteries have been discharged. This one's at 22.97. Alright, so we'll set this alarm in the balance port. It's 22.9 total voltage, 3.83. So it's not going to take long at all to take it out, but we'll do a small test here and show you there's no amps flowing, there's no watts, and there's no milliamps taken out. Alright, so we'll do, there's 22.9, we'll do just a 4 amp draw because it won't take long to draw this down. And you watch it, the voltage starts dropping there. It's a 4.1 amp load there, 92 watts. So it's not quite the 100 watts between the two, but it's drawing 90 watts for this. So you can multiply that times 3 if you hit all 3 banks. The alarm just came on because it dropped down, and it's 47, 48. You can see the milliamps that's counting up there. And then when you stop the load and stop the noise, you can see that you drew 59 milliamps out of this battery. Okay, so this battery was discharged already. If we get a full battery, it's going to take about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, depending on the size. It all depends on how many milliamps, and then so you just do the math and you figure out how long. But make sure that to test your alarm and watch it. Stay right there with it. Don't. But anyway, it's a fast way that you can discharge without leaving your batteries charged, because that is not good for your batteries at all. Now, this also works well with 12 volt, and I'll show you that, because remember we talked about the load and doubling the load, and that pushes this 24 volt load at a certain rate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this 12 volt battery to let you see what's happening with that. Alright, let's see, you know what, let's hook up this meter as well. Alright, so if you look at that, you'll see that it's 11.7 volts. 11.1 is fully discharged on this, and we're going to connect that up to the same load. And if you notice, they were all on, but what it's doing, there's no amperage flowing, but it's already taken out 13 milliamps of charge from this battery. All right, so we'll put 1 on there, and you notice the bulbs are a lot less than they were on the 24 volt because it's double the load, so it's only letting half the amperage flow. So if you look over here at the amps, now you have a 2.8 amp load instead of your 4 amp load. Okay, so not quite half, but then when you go over here, there's only 31 watts of power, okay, instead of the actually a lot more than that. And then milliamps are a lot slower. It's like 1 milliamp per second. All right, so we can kick that on up. And now you see it's really coming in there. It's got 10.68 volts, 8 amps, and 87 watts of power with all the bulbs. All right. So you can use it for 12 volt. You can use it for 2 cell. You can use 2 cell, 3 cell, anything up to 6 cell. I don't know if I would go much more than 6 cell because this is set up for that voltage, and I don't know how long your bulbs would last. But the good thing is this can be done by buying all this stuff at the hardware store. All of these sockets right here are about $3 or $2.96 a piece. The bulbs are $3 for a pack of 2. You can get these at Vance Auto and O'Reilly's Auto Parts. You need to make sure that you have the 50 watt bulbs and it says 12 volts. Don't try to plug in a 110 volt bulb because it's not going to work. But this is the way that you wire it. If you got any questions, shoot me an email or post a link. But I just use an EC5 connector. If I had it to do over with again, and I'm going to build another one, that's why I got this stuff. I may do a build video. But I would put a bullet, 2 female bullet connectors on so that you can plug in whatever discharge adapter that you have for your battery. It would look something like this with these positive and negative bullets, and you just plug it in and then plug in whatever you're going to discharge. This EC3 is again so I can build another one of these and put 2 of these in parallel to double my draw so that I can hook multiple packs in and still draw them down at the same rate. And I just used the washer in the bottom of this, drilled a hole, put a washer, screwed the I took the nails out of here, just drilled a hole in the bottom and screwed it right to the board. And then, of course, I've soldered these connections in here. You don't have to solder them. You can buy these butt connectors and crimp it on the wire and then just put it on the screws here. Now, in between here to connect these, I use solid copper wire, about 12 gauge solid copper wire, just because I didn't want to have extra wire to create resistance that would slow down the draw. Regular sheetrock screws, these things again, $3 a pair, $3 a piece for the base, a couple dollars for the box. I think the switch is the most expensive part. The switch is about $12, maybe $15 depending on where you live. And then your wire, and I scavenged this used wire, but you can buy a roll of this automotive wire, 14 gauge, get 2 colors, and just crimp it on there. And for about an hour's worth of work and about $40, you can have a discharger that is safe, and it works very well. We've used these. We've got packs for the 700 helicopters, and when you buy a charger, you can charge at high rates of input to charge the batteries, but when you go to discharge it, most of your chargers only have a 5 amp draw. So 1 switch is all you get with your charger. You got all this big charger sitting there. When you could be charging, you're letting it sit there at a slow rate to discharge. So when we balance the batteries, or not balance the batteries, but when we cycle the batteries to lower the internal resistance, we'll put it on the charger and charge them at a constant rate, and then put it on the discharger and start it discharging, and put another set on the charger, and then keep that cycle going, and it shortens that cycle time. Again, there's other, more high-tech. The drawback to this is the size of it and how fragile these bulbs are. You have to be careful. A friend of mine actually talked about being sunburned and his county glowing when he uses it and that kind of stuff because of the power. You could build something, put you a board or some aluminum or something that's not flammable, to block the light. But anyway, I just wanted to show you a way that you could build a cheap discharger that works well and it is safe to use as long as you're careful and you know what you're doing. And we call this Wattzilla. That's the nickname that was given to it because it's like a monster that eats watts, and it's a very useful tool. You can use it at the field, you can use it at your house. I just keep it on the shelf, and I try to charge the batteries right before I go fly, and then if I happen not to be able to fly, then this is where this comes in, so my batteries aren't sitting there charged for long periods. It just helps me discharge them back to a good storage rate. If you have any questions, please send me an email, or just put a link down at the bottom. Send me a message, but like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll do a build video on this and then show it a little more in action, do a real-time discharge of a 6-cell battery. Thanks for watching.